Let all of them join. अरे यार इसे बंद कर देते हैं, बुरा लग रहा है, मैं यहाँ पे भी, मैं यहाँ पे भी हूँ. मैम वॉर्स के बाद मैं शुभा, आई विल रिपीट दैट सेंटेंस, डोंट वरी, लेट एवरीबडी ज्वाइन. गला खराब है, एंटीबायोटिक अभी अभी. ठंड तो नहीं लग रही? कुछ बाहर का खाया है? ओके. हाँ, हमारे तो जो खाना बनाती है वो बीमार हो गई. ओहो. मयंक त्रिपाठी, आई विल रिपीट द होल लाइन. वैसे मैंने वॉर्स के बाद कुछ भी अगला शब्द भी नहीं बोला, बट स्टिल आई विल रिपीट इट, डोंट वरी. मैंने बोला गया था वैसे. एवरीबडी इज ज्वाइंड, आई होप सो. आई कैन सी लॉट ऑफ पीपल. हाँ, वैसे भी रिकॉर्डेड तो मिल ही जाएगा ना उन्हें. हाँ ठीक. हाँ, लास्ट लाइन. French religious war, Baudin, French religious wars, full stop, Baudin wanted to establish supremacy of state, therefore gave the monastic and legal concept of sovereignty. So कैसा concept है बौद्धा का? Monastic and legal. Second heading, features of Baudin's sovereignty. Features of Baudin's sovereignty. Features of Baudin's sovereignty. Number one, according to him, it is the feature of a state. Feature of a state मतलब किसमें होगी sovereignty? Only with state. नहीं, person or state, but at the level of state. गली का, गांव का प्रधान बोलने लगा I am sovereign. Not like that. Only the state or the person heading the state can say that I am sovereign. So it is the feature of state. Second, it is the supreme power. Supreme power means एकदम supreme power. Complete, absolute, indivisible power. Complete, absolute, indivisible power. Then it is permanent. Permanent means ऐसा नहीं आज तुम आज के लिए sovereign हो. Not like this. एक दिन का CM वाला concept नहीं है ना. Permanent. Person में change. But that position of sovereignty, the chair that holds, prime minister may change, but that chair remains permanent. The power with that chair remains permanent. Then देन इज इनएलिएनेबल, या फिर इसके अंदर लिख लो नॉन ट्रांसफरेबल, नॉन ट्रांसफरेबल। Nobody can transfer sovereignty to any other. कोई ट्रांसफर नहीं कर सकता, जिसके पास पावर है वही सॉवरेन है। कैसे ट्रांसफर करोगे? बंदा चेंज हो रहा है ना, चेयर तो फिक्स्ड है, चेयर फिक्स्ड है। बंदा कौन बोल रहा है? तुम बोलते हो क्या बीच में? क्या मेरे कान बज रहे हैं? डन, हाँ अच्छा ठीक है। सो नॉन ट्रांसफरेबल। एंड लास्ट इज sovereignty is unrestrained by law. Unrestrained by law. Unrestrained by law because law is made by sovereign. देखो इसमें जो बुक के नाम है वो इससे ले लोगे ना, प्रिंटेड नोट से, द नेम ऑफ द बुक एक्सेट्रा। पावर कैसी होगी सॉवरेन की? अनलिमिटेड, अनलिमिटेड पावर। with power to make, amend, interpret, power to make, amend, interpret and execute law. Make, amend, interpret and execute the law. लेकिन इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाया इसने, है ना, लेकिन इसने क्या किया? he put on some limitations because he wanted to make state very strong, but at the same time he was a very liberal person at heart. He understood that if he gives so much power to one institution or one person, the person will become tyrannical. Therefore he imposed certain restrictions, certain limitations. लेकिन जैसे ही उसने limitations लगाई sovereignty पे, philosophically it becomes inconsistent. Philosophically, political science wise it is good, philosophically it becomes inconsistent, because when we are talking about sovereignty, it should be absolute, even though practically, ethically, democratically, socially very, very harmful, but conceptually, as a concept, the moment you put limitations on a sovereign, it doesn't remain supreme, है ना? Next heading, limitations imposed by Bodin. Limitations imposed by Bodin. According to Bodin, the best model of government is, the best model of governance is just monarchy. Inverted commas में लिखो just monarchy. Just monarchy. He said, a king was all powerful like God. A king was all powerful like God. And like God, he was also expected to rule with justice. Like God, he was also expected to rule with justice. Next paragraph. Even though sovereign of Bodin is above law, even though sovereign of Bodin is above law, he is still subordinate to duty and moral responsibility. He is still subordinate to duty and moral responsibility. Therefore, he imposes certain limitations. Number 1, divine and natural law. Divine and natural law. He cannot divine and natural laws. He cannot move beyond truth, honesty, and justice. He cannot move beyond truth, honesty, and justice. Basically, divine and natural laws. So nature, according to Buddha, nature has defined certain laws. Similarly, God has defined certain laws, and sovereign cannot change them. Honesty is the best policy. Sovereign cannot change it, howsoever good or howsoever strong the sovereign is. Sovereign is under the command of God. Second, property. Sovereign cannot take up the property of an individual without consent. Cannot even tax the individual without consent. Cannot tax the individual without consent. Third, legus imperi. Legus imperi. That is, sovereign is influenced by social laws, customs, and cultures. Sovereign is influenced by social laws, culture, and customs. Example मैंने बताया ना, कपड़े नहीं बदल सकते आप, religion करने से नहीं रोक सकते. You cannot say from tomorrow government will take up all the kids and we will teach them parents. एकदम कस्टम है, बच्चों को प्यार है सबको अपने बच्चों से, सब अपने फैमिलीज में अब तक रखते आए हैं, है ना. So you cannot change it immediately. Fourth is dominion. DOMINIUM. Dominium. That is, sovereign cannot interfere in family. Because the head of family is responsible for, cannot interfere with family because the head of family is responsible for decisions made in the family. Decisions made in the family. But ma'am, when we got independence, then sovereignty shifted from UK to India. No. We got independence and then we achieved sovereignty. Philosophically. देखो पॉलिटिकल साइंस में और फिलोसफी में थोड़ा सा ओके. अब बताओ क्या प्रॉब्लम है इस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी में बौद्धा के? Sovereign cannot tax. Sovereign cannot take a property. Sovereign will have to comply to the divine law. Who will define divine law? Who will define natural law? Now, supposedly, sovereign does not follow the natural law. Who will punish? Sovereign cannot interfere in the family. Sovereign cannot take your property. Sovereign has to comply to the social norms. और वैसे उसने जब definition दी है, supreme power, supreme command, self contradictory, लिखो criticism. Number 1, बताओ क्या होगा? बिल्कुल. Supreme power and limitations are self contradictory. Supreme power and supreme power and limitations are self contradictory. Second, he doesn't explain divine and natural laws. He doesn't explain divine and natural laws. If sovereign has to interpret, he will interpret according to his understanding. लेकिन अगर sovereign कर रहा है तो वो उस पे limitations थोड़े ना हुए. And if there is someone who is defining these divine and natural laws, तो वो sovereign है. If the king does not follow divine law, who will punish? लिख लो ये सब बात, लिख लो अपने तरीके से लिख लो या लिखवाऊं? लिख लोगे ना आप? If the sovereign violates natural law, divine law, who will punish? अरे अगर फोन काट दो लोगों को समझ क्यों नहीं आता? If he cannot even tax, how is he sovereign? Conclusion. Even though Bodin gives the absolute sovereignty theory, even though Bodin or Baudin gives the absolute sovereignty theory, still his concern for liberty, justice, and welfare of the people. Therefore, his concern for liberty, justice, and welfare of the people makes him contradictory, makes his concept contradictory. Importance. Baudin gave the first theory of sovereignty, first formal theory of sovereignty. Since then, sovereignty has become the central concept of political science. हमने concept दिया, उसके बाद वहां पे जाके वो उन्होंने उसके अंदर डिटेल्स भर दी. Sovereignty became the central concept of political science or politics. The legal and monastic view with limitations. Legal and monastic view with limitations. Legal and monastic view with limitations is very close to the constitutional governments of today. Are very close to the constitutional governments of today. आज की जितनी constitutional governments है वो ऐसे ही तो है ना? That they are sovereign but limitations. Then second is Austin. छोड़ा है इतना ही चाहिए बाकी बाकी है तुम्हारी डिजायर्स के लिए है ये एक्चुअली इतने की जरूरत नहीं है इन्होंने बहुत लिख दिया लेकिन पढ़ लेना अच्छा है कोई बुरी बात नहीं है जरा सा पढ़ लेना ओके देन कम्स ऑस्टिन जॉन ऑस्टिन अब बेसिकली कहाँ गए इसमें कहाँ है ऑस्टिन हाँ ये रहा जॉन ऑस्टिन अब जो ऑस्टिन है वो लगभग 19th सेंचुरी का फिलोसोफर है ऑस्टिन ने बोला कि आई विल क्रिएट द कंसिस्टेंट थ्योरी ऑफ sovereignty. The moment you say consistent theory of sovereignty, बस limitations हटा दो. All else remains same. And if there is no limitations, then absolute power, most probably absolute power turns into despotic rule, dictatorship, isn't it? Okay. ठीक है लिखो. अच्छा एक चीज और लिख लो चाहो तो ये एक से बौद्धा के अंदर why was the contradiction there in Buddha's theory because of his own nature as a liberalist. Second, the age in which he was, that was very confusing because wars were going on, religious wars were going on, church and state were always in conflict. Therefore, he wanted to make state as supreme. But the moment he said supreme state, he felt, अरे लोगों का क्या होगा? है ना? So that is it. Okay. Okay. Next. Austin. 19th century philosopher. 19th century philosopher. What is Sky News? हाँ? न्यूज चैनल है अच्छा ये सब आवाजें सुनता है फोन ओके Austin gave legal monistic and classical theory of sovereignty legal monistic and classical theory of sovereignty legal monistic and classical theory of sovereignty. According to Austin, एक लाइन पढ़ो या फिर लिख लो sovereignty means a determinate human superior. Sovereignty means a determinate human superior who receives habitual obedience from the bulk of a given society, from the bulk of a given society, from the bulk of a given society, from the bulk of a given society and not in a habit from the bulk of a given society and not in a habit of obedience. Not in a habit of obedience to a like superior, comma, that determinate superior is sovereign, comma, that determinate superior is sovereign in that society. That determinate superior is sovereign in that society, and the society is social, political and independent. And the society is social, political and independent. अब इसके अंदर देखो क्या क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है, इस डेफिनेशन को पढ़ो. पहला क्या है? डिटर्मिनेट. एक एक लाइन, एक एक टर्म अंडरलाइन करते जाओ और समझते जाओ. डिटर्मिनेट, पिन पॉइंटेड, ये सॉवरेन है. ये वेग नहीं होना चाहिए. डिटर्मिनेट, ह्यूमन सुपीरियर, not some body, not some institution, single human. Determinate, human, superior. फिर क्या है? Habitually obedience. Society by habit, by not choice, by habit obey the sovereign. By habit receives obedience from the bulk of the society and not in a habit of obedience to any like superior. कोई भी और superior भी हो, ये उसको obey नहीं करता. लोग इसे obey करते हैं, ये लोगों को obey नहीं करता. He is not required to obey anyone. Next, that determined superior is sovereign, and that society is social, political and independent. Understood? Definition बहुत important है ऑस्टिन की. ठीक है, अब essential features लिख लो. Essential feature number 1, sovereignty is an essential feature of independent state. Sovereignty is an essential feature of an independent state. Second, sovereignty is definite and clearly located. Sovereignty is definitely and clearly located in the state. मतलब सबको पता है कि कौन sovereign है. Sovereignty is definite and clearly located in state. ठीक है? Law is the command of sovereign. Law क्या है? Command of sovereign. Law is the command of sovereign. Third, sovereign is in human authority. Sovereign is human authority. Next, issues commands but does not receive commands. कौन कौन बनना चाह रहा है sovereign? ऑस्टिन वाला है ना? मुझे लगा 2-4 इंस्पायर हो गए हो. Issues command but do not or does not receive command. Sovereignty is unlimited and absolute. Sovereignty is unlimited and absolute. Legally, sovereignty is unlimited and absolute. Legally, sovereign draws his own limits. Sovereign ने खुद बोल दिया. Sovereign draws his own limits. मतलब कोई और उसको नहीं रोक सकता. एक बार मैं वादा कर देता हूं तो मैं खुद की भी नहीं सुनता. Types. This means only person who can stop the sovereign is sovereign. Simple terms में. ठीक है. हाँ हाँ, मेरी मर्जी. तुम लोग देख रहे हो गानों के अंदर कितना कितना डीप प्रोफाउंड ज्ञान है. ओके. And disobedience is punishable. Disobedience is punishable. If there is a conflict, next point, if there is a conflict between religious laws, natural laws, divine laws, then laws or commands of sovereign will prevail. अगर conflict हुआ भी तो किसी से, किसके बात चलेगी? Sovereign. Command of sovereign will prevail. एक ऐसे डब्बा बना लो, Austin's sovereignty. लिखो indivisible, inalienable, indivisible. Ma'am, in definition of Austin, after political, which word? Indeterminate or something else? Not indeterminate, determinate. After political, political के बाद क्या है? Political and independent. है ना? Society is social, political and independent. शोभा. So क्या है ऑस्टिन के जो sovereignty का concept क्या है? Unlimited, inalienable, उसके बाद non transferable, absolute, universal, permanent, absolute, universal, permanent, exclusive, indivisible, supreme, monistic, legal, legal के बगल में लिख लो positive law. Positive law means law made by a person. No limitation, no limitation. Made by person. Negative कुछ law नहीं होता. ओके. अब क्रिटिसिज्म बता दो इसके. हाँ, just a second. I'll have to take a call. Extreme, okay, desperate times require desperate measures. ठीक है. क्या चीज? डिनर Howsoever, मैं ऑस्टिन वाला सॉवरेन हूँ नहीं. I am not sovereign like Austin. I am sovereign like Boida. I have to be under the limitations of my team and many different things. नहीं, एक दिन तुम लोग select हो जाओ. Then we will go to a proper restaurant. है ना? हाँ? सबका होना चाहिए. नहीं नहीं नहीं, सेलेक्ट होना है भाई. देखो मैं इतनी मेहनत फालतू में नहीं करती. I don't like wasted efforts, though it is a law of nature. But है ना, देखो, you have to work and you have to get selected. तुम्हारा पता नहीं, मेरे को बहुत टेंशन है एंड मेरे नाम की बात है. तनु मैम ने पढ़ाया फिर भी सिलेक्शन नहीं हुआ. I don't want to hear that. But देखो, at least you should when you write mains you should be sufficiently prepared, ना? तो important. तो ऐसे मत पढ़ना, ढंग से पढ़ो. ठीक है, चलो. Number one, pluralists like Lasky, will criticize monistic theory. Second, rulers cannot ignore religions, customs, and public opinion. Rulers cannot ignore religions, customs, and public opinion. Next, no sovereign can receive habitual obedience. No sovereign can receive habitual obedience from the bulk of society. Because there is press, habitual obedience, because there is press, various institutions, religion, culture, groups, and many unknown forces. Many unknown जिन्हें हम जान भी नहीं सकते. Like many, when you will read biographies of many leaders, you will realize that many decisions that they have taken have been influenced by their own personal lives. Something happened in their own personal life which led them to decide something. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Therefore, isn't that a kind of an influence over sovereign? So this means that sovereign gets influenced by many unknown forces. The kind of religion that sovereign has followed, the policies will be influenced by that. Past experiences, teachings. Teachers has always had a very strong influence. Religious leaders, parents, है ना? So all these things influence. Then next, sovereignty is also limited by external laws like UN, etc. now in today's time. UN, etc. in today's time, limited by international law, limited by international law. Next, absolute state बन जाएगा इससे, can give rise to absolute state or dictatorship or dictatorship. Practically not possible. Practically not possible. Practically not possible. कोई एडवांटेजेस भी है क्या? Number one, logically consistent. Logically consistent. Logically, there is no contradiction. Logically consistent. Sovereignty के concept के लिए logical है. We are not judging the logical understanding of a despot. We are judging the concept of sovereignty. And Austin's concept of sovereignty is logically consistent or philosophically consistent, but practically undesirable. But practically undesirable and not possible. Practically undesirable and not possible. ठीक है? क्या चीज? नहीं मतलब वो तो मैंने कंक्लूजन एक ही मतलब कंक्लूजन मान लो इसे, ठीक है? अगर अच्छा होगा तो मोनार्की वाला लग जाएगा, है ना? एडवांटेजेस, if the sovereign is monastic and legal and such, if such sovereignty exists, then of course if the ruler is good, then उस nation को कोई नहीं रोक सकता, isn't it? A benevolent ruler with sovereignty of Austin. एकदम shoot up development. ठीक है? Then next is Lasky. हाँ वही एक बात है, अपने सिटीजन के लिए होगा ना, वो डिक्टेटर किसका है? अपने सिटीजन का. Lasky, pluralist theory of sovereignty. Pluralist theory of sovereignty. अरे इसमें खोल लो, मिल जाएगा. देखो ये रहा, हेरोल्ड लास्की, मिल गया. देखो जो लास्की है ना, वो प्रेजेंट कंटेक्स्ट की बात कर. He says that whatever we do, sovereignty cannot be monastic because power is distributed between many organs of the state, many organs. So definitely there will be legislature which have only the power to legislate. But can they punish directly? For that there is judiciary. To implement the policies, executive. To maintain all these three, to control accountability of all these three, press. Institutions like CAG, Constitution, Ombudsman, Lokpal, etc. Opposition. There are various NGOs. There are pressure groups. There are voluntary organizations. There are political parties, other political parties, even international bodies, international opinion. Also, international press. So this means that practically monistic theory is not possible. Neither of Austin, neither of Moda. What is possible? Pluralistic theory of sovereignty. Only pluralism is possible. That different groups are there which exert their own pressure in a particular small area. And with this distributed sovereignty, ultimately, there is no one sovereign, but different organizations, sovereign in different domains. This is known as plural sovereignty. अब इसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम आएगी? Conceptually, sovereignty has been diluted, dissolved, and melted away. It is not sovereignty if it is distributed. Second, if there is a fight between two agencies, who will resolve that conflict? Someone should be there, na? And whatever or whoever there is, that is sovereign. There must be someone to resolve. And the moment you say that this person will resolve the conflict between these organizations, that person is sovereign. You understand? Then, who will decide? People will have distributed obedience. अब उन्हें समझ नहीं आ रहा, गवर्नमेंट की बात माने, रिलीजन की बात माने, सोसाइटी की बात माने, फैमिली की बात, because now when the sovereignty is distributed, this means everyone is sovereign. To which sovereign will the obedience will be there? If you say the final obedience is towards this state only, then that becomes sovereign. Then it is no more pluralistic. You understand? ठीक है, बस यही है. तो हम क्या बोलेंगे? Practically more convenient, but logically inconsistent. ठीक है, लिखो लास्ट की. He believed in democratization of power. He believed in democratization of power. And maintained that sovereign is not the only source of law. And maintained that sovereign is not the only source of law. Public opinions and customs influence the sovereign. Influence the sovereign. Like, लिख लो, press, legislature, judiciary, NGOs, voluntary organization, pressure groups. Are all sovereign in their limited space. Next paragraph. Lasky says there is no moral ground. There is no moral ground for one individual. There is no moral ground for one individual to ask allegiance out of fear. To ask allegiance or obedience. To ask allegiance or obedience out of fear. Full stop. Obedience to state. Full stop. Obedience to state should be voluntary. Obedience to the state should be voluntary. Role of state should be as that of coordinator. Role should act like state should act like coordinator. State should act like coordinator. Criticism. Criticism क्या है? Sovereignty का concept ही dilute हो गया. लिख लो. Divided sovereignty is no sovereignty. Divided sovereignty is no sovereignty. Divided sovereignty is no sovereignty.
State है, so decision making में influence करेगा लोग. Ultimately जो लोग खुद sovereign नहीं है, ultimately फिर responsible to state को ही होगा.
हाँ, तो अभी हम बताएंगे ना कि जब आपने सॉवरेन स्टेट को बना दिया कि वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करेगा तो वो सॉवरेन नहीं हो गया. अभी लिखेंगे हम लोग. सेकंड when state will resolve the conflict, when state will resolve the conflict between two institutions, when state will resolve the conflict between two institutions, then state becomes sovereign. If state is not sovereign, then there will be anarchy. अगर कोई एक सॉल्यूशन नहीं दे पा रहा है तो there will be anarchy. लेजिस्लेचर कह रहा है ऐसे होगा, जुडिशरी कह रहा है ऐसे होगा. किसकी बात मानेंगे? लड़ रहे हैं, कोई किसी की बात नहीं मान रहा. उन्होंने हमला कर दिया, जजेस ने भी हमला कर दिया. जजेस ने पुलिस को बुलाया, पुलिस कह रही है हम किसकी बात माने, एमपी की या जज की? हु इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट? पता ही नहीं किसको कौन मोर इम्पोर्टेंट है. समझ रहे हो? देयर हैज टू बी समवन हु विल रिजॉल्व. हमारे यहाँ हाँ, हमारे यहाँ पीपल. हाँ, people. So people will basically understand like this. This sovereignty, the concept is in itself very vague. Very vague. I have tried to concretize it for you. Understand like this. We say that people are sovereign. But to exercise that sovereignty by people, the means is elections. Once you elect, People go to parliament. So the next after people, if we say, what is sovereign? Parliament. But parliament can work according to only constitution. So constitution and then parliament. Constitution. So there is no fixed answer. There is no fixed answer. That is why if we have to say, we just say popular sovereignty India. People are sovereign. The problem with this concept of sovereignty is supposedly constitution makers put it like this. Ex post is sovereign. Ex post becomes dictator. Can they put sovereignty somewhere? The safest place is to put in people. Because now there is no sovereign actually. But if we have to say that people cannot be directly sovereign, they are sovereign, but there is a process to it. So if we have to find एक sovereign बताओ, नहीं बताओ, that can only be constitution. But basic structure आ गया ना? देखो वो तो फिर हाँ बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं बट दैट वुड बी क्लेमिंग सॉवरेनिटी अभी है नहीं दैट वुड बी क्लेमिंग सॉवरेनिटी उससे पहले बहुत कुछ हो जाएगा यस चलो लिखो तुम्हें घर नहीं जाना मेरे को तो जाना है मेरा तो छोटा बच्चा है चलो हाँ छुट्टी नहीं मिलेगी चलो अब एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सा करेंगे वो इसमें से करेंगे कौटिल्य इसमें से करेंगे कौटिल्य के अंदर ज्यादा कुछ है नहीं आ जाओ अब इसमें खोलो कौटिल्य देखो ये जो 7 है ना दीज 7 पिलर्स सप्तांग थ्योरी कहते हैं सप्तांग थ्योरी ऑफ कौटिल्य सो वी ऑल नो हु वाज कौटिल्य विष्णुगुप्त चाणक्य all the same person he was the teacher of Chandragupta Maurya वो हम लिखेंगे नहीं ये चाणक्य हम लोग लिखेंगे नहीं इसमें से पढ़ लेना उसमें बस समझ लो क्योंकि समझने की बात है बस वो so Chanakya was the person who wrote Arthashastra and he is considered to be the Machiavelli of India rather Machiavelli should be called चाणक्य ऑफ वेस्ट तो आज के बाद क्या लिखोगे अपने कॉपीज में लिख लो मैकियावेली इज नोन एज चाणक्य ऑफ वेस्ट देखो हम नहीं लिखेंगे तो कैसे चलेगा नहीं ठीक है पता होना चाहिए चलो so now Chanakya also wanted to create a proper state. Understand the times of Chanakya. There was a dynasty, Nanda dynasty, which was ruling. The king was Dhananand and he was a very unjust king. Always embroiled in luxuries, psychophancy and not looking after the welfare of people. And at the same time, there were various small kingdoms around the border of India, which were unstable. They were fighting amongst each other. एक दूसरे से लड़े जा रहे हैं, धाए आपस में लड़े जा रहे हैं. But the problem is, if they are fighting amongst themselves, none of them is strong enough to fight the foreign invasion. At that time, you have to understand that Sikandar or Alexander was marching towards India. Now, as a teacher, and understand there is a very beautiful. Have you seen show of Chanakya? Watch it sometime. Beautiful, beautiful. So it says that the responsibility of teacher is not just education. When the time comes, teacher should assume the responsibility of whatever role it's required, because the pillar is teacher. That's creating the generation. So he takes up and he assumes the responsibility of political strategist. He goes to Dhananand and says, your policies are wrong. Foreign invasion is about to happen. You should take up the charge. You are the biggest state. You should take up, ikhatta karo sabko, and so that we can protect our country. The Aryavrat, or what do you say, the Bharat, है ना? Bharat or Bharat Khand. But Dhananand did not listen to him. Rather, he humiliated Chanakya. And then it is said that Chanakya came back, resolved that I will change the political scene. And he became the kingmaker. He saw a young child, Chandragupta Maurya. He trained him. And with the help of Chandragupta Maurya, he actually made alliance with many rulers and ultimately defeated Dhananand, assumed the charge of Maurya dynasty. Chandragupta Maurya assumed the charge of Maurya dynasty, and from there he मतलब जब खैर हो ही नहीं पाया कुछ ज्यादा, तब तक अलेक्जेंडर खुद ही मर गया, है ना? वो आ रहा था, ये लोग तैयारी करके बैठे थे, फिर वो वहीं पे he was gone. And though he interacted with the Indian borders, but the real proper war did not happen. हाँ, पोरस तक वो वहां तक गया, and then he went away. So basically but in the meantime, Chandragupta Maurya had become the king, and he had the whole, उसने सबसे alliances बना लिए, सबके साथ जो मान गया उसको friend बना लिया, जो नहीं माना उसको defeat कर दिया. So in the way he expanded his kingdom and created the Bharatvarsh, or Akhand Bharat. That was the dream of Chanakya, fulfilled by Chandragupta Maurya. Simple. Now, what kind of sovereignty was he looking at, Chanakya? Tell me. Condition बता दी मैंने तुम्हें. बताओ कैसे type का sovereign चाहिए होगा उसे. First, absolute, but again restricted or limited by dharma. Now, dharma is a very great concept of India. Dharma, I told you, is not religion. It's duty. So the king, whenever he or she assumes, or the king assumes the role, there are certain duties imposed by that particular role. How should an ideal king behave? Should an ideal king be wasting time in luxuries? No. Ideal king should be working towards the welfare of people. How should an ideal king behave? Should ideal king be complacent about borders? No. He should be vigilant about borders. कहाँ से क्या war होने वाला है, क्या होने वाला है. And wherever he can avoid the war and can make alliances, he should make the alliance. Simple. Whatever is the duty of a king should be followed by the king. Who is responsible for the welfare of people? King. Equality, liberty, and justice. Whatever notions that were available at that time, not modern notions, whatever notions that were available at that time should be taken care of by. So king should act paternalistically, like a parent. So king is the parent and citizens or subjects are the children. So just as a parent take care of a child, of his or her child, similarly a king should take care of subjects. Sometimes parents reward you if you do something good, and if you do some shaitani or badmashi, punishment. Similar. Same role is to be adopted by king, because whatever your parents do, chapat or reward, but it is for your betterment. Similarly, whatever role the king should play, should be like parent for the betterment of the people. Therefore, even though the king is absolute, sovereign, he is ready, he can make laws, internal laws, he can make external treaties, etc., etc. But whatever he does, he is restricted and limited by dharma. अब now धर्म is so expansive. सब कुछ धर्म में आ जाता है, isn't it? Righteousness, moral righteousness. और उसने बोला, चाणक्य ने बोला, if the king is not morally righteous, if king is not moral, people can revolt, remove the king. किसके ज्यादा करीब है, ऑस्टिन के बॉर्डन के? बॉर्डन और बौद्धा? ऑस्टिन तो अलग ही हो गया, बौद्धा के करीब हो गया, इसीलिए चाणक्य और बौद्धा का कंपैरिजन आता है. सिंपल. नाउ सप्तांग थ्योरी समझ लो बस. वैसे मुझे नहीं पता क्यों है, लेकिन हर नोट्स में थी, इसलिए मैंने बता दिया, तुम लोगों को बता दे रही हूँ. लेकिन एक्चुअली इट्स नॉट डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड टू द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी. These are the 7 pillars. First is Swami. Swami means king. Then is Amatya, minister, advisor. Then is Janpad. Territory must be there. बिना टेरिटरी के तो स्टेट भी नहीं है, और जब स्टेट नहीं है तो सॉवरेन कहाँ का है? Then fort, दुर्ग. Then कोश, treasury. Then army, and mitra means ally. This is known as the Saptang theory. These are the 7 pillars of state. And a king is responsible for all the 7. King should not act whimsically. He should have advisors. Should those advisors be sycophants? No. They should be truthful, wise people with experience. Should army be used for his own benefit? No. Treasury should be used for own shopping? No. Treasury should be used for the welfare of people. It's a responsibility of king to maintain healthy treasury. Basically, तुम जो अच्छा king मानते हो ना, सब limitation है उस king पे. और वैसे whenever the king is acting in for the benefit of people, sovereign. If goes against to the people. But problem क्या है कि ये decide कौन करेगा? Whether the king is following the dharma or not. Punishment कौन देगा? Gray area. है ना? People of course, but still a gray area. But it is more closer to what? ठीक है? Criticism देख लेते हैं एक बार. Authoritarianism है ना? Because उसने single point king को बना लिया. और ये भी नहीं बताया कि उसे पनिश कौन करेगा. Who will punish the king? ठीक है. Ethical concerns. अब कौटिल्य ने खुद ऐसे टैक्टिक्स बताए हैं अपनी थ्योरी में. स्पाई करो, साम दाम दंड भेद. That sometimes it appears that whether he was following dharma or not. Yes. So we have to defend it by saying real politic. How many of you know what is real politic? अच्छा छोड़ो, छोड़ जाओ, भूल जाओ. Understand it like this, that India follows certain policies which may not be completely considered ethical by outsiders, but we follow it because that is in the best interest of our nation. When you follow such things, this is known as real politic. हाँ, राजधर्म. Rajdharm. So that Rajdharm. So that comes under this. Then limited role of citizens. उसने citizens के welfare के लिए बात करी, सब करी, लेकिन citizens का कोई role नहीं है administration में. No role of citizens in administration. Security at the expense of liberty. उसने बोला अगर security पे threat है, तो पूरे छावनी बना दो पूरे देश को, then king can do anything. If there are threat on border, you can do anything. Then king can do anything. Risk of tyranny. बॉर्डर पे वो दिखा के कभी भी बनाया जा सकता है ना? हाँ, इमरजेंसी। इसमें लिख लो, धर्म वाली बात लिख लिया आप लोगों ने, राजधर्म लिख लिया? नहीं नहीं, सिंपल धर्म की बात लिख ली, राइटियसनेस लिख लो। That concept of sovereignty of Chanakya is based on limitation by dharma. Limitation by dharma. ठीक है? Positives, realism in governance. Realism पे बात करता है, ना optimism, ना pessimism. There is a balance. Realism. Second, followable, practical. Best combination, है ना? Then effective governance, of course, उनकी बताई हुई नीतियां आज भी relevant हैं. Ethical governance, वो दे रहा, इसमें लिखा भी ethical foundation of धर्म. उन्होंने जितनी tactics भी बताई statecraft की, statecraft means politics की, they were all directed towards dharma. Even though he said that you can do Sam Dam Dand Bhed, but for what? Welfare of people. The intentions has to be pure. Then historical context, that Kautilya should be understood in the context of history. With this, the socio-political philosophy is finished. हाँ हाँ, कल से नहीं बचेंगे, कल तो ओरिएंटेशन रहेगा, आ जाओ। आपकी पार्टी बताओ कब करनी है? क्या कह रही है? अभी तुम्हें चाय नहीं पिलाएंगे? और क्या क्या चाहिए तुम्हें? है कौन कौन है फर्स्ट बैच से? तुम लोग कल से नहीं आओगे? ऐसा तुम तो जीएस वाले हो ना, ऑप्शनल में नहीं आएंगे। और तुम दोनों लड़कियां, शुभम और हाँ, तुम्हारे वो जो 3 दोस्त हैं वो तो खैर ऑनलाइन है। मैम, ये आपका फर्स्ट फिलॉसफी बैच था जो आज ओवर हुआ। हाँ, तथास्तु का फर्स्ट था। यस। हाँ, वेस्टर्न 1 month few days, ऐसा मैं मान रही हूँ। 1 month few days। हाँ, क्या? क्यों? नहीं नहीं, वो तुम लोगों का इसलिए ज्यादा लगा क्योंकि हाँ, मैंने पहले स्टार्टिंग में ना रिटर्न नोट्स देने लगी मैं, फिर मुझे रियलाइज हुआ कि तुम लोगों की स्पीड है बहुत स्लो। हाँ, अब सही हो गई, लेकिन तब तक इन लोगों की स्पीड थी बहुत स्लो। फिर मुझे लगा कि इनके चक्कर के अंदर ना, हाँ, और मैं कॉम्प्रोमाइज करती नहीं हूँ नोट्स, मतलब किसी चीज से ऐसे कि यार इसी किस लिए कॉम्प्रोमाइज किया जाए, तो फिर नहीं, तो इसीलिए मैंने तो प्रिंट करवा लिया ना, आई हैव सेव्ड माई सेल्फ। हाँ, तो अब जल्दी हो जाएगा। क्या? हाँ, डिपेंडिंग, मतलब वेस्टर्न थोड़ा उसमें फिलोसफर्स ज्यादा हैं, है ना, कंपेयर टू इंडियन, बट द फिलोसफर्स आर वेरी व्हाट डू यू से, हाँ हाँ, लिमिटेड, मतलब लिमिटेड इन द सेंस उनका एक्सपेंस बहुत लिमिटेड है, स्ट्रक्चर्ड है। मैम विल देयर बी नो डिस्कशन ऑन जीनोसाइड एंड मास वायलेंस? अरे हाँ, जीनोसाइड एक रहेगा, जीनोसाइड पे एक डिस्कशन डाल देंगे, जीनोसाइड में ऐसा कुछ खास है नहीं, हाँ, एक एक डिस्कशन डाल देंगे ना, वो मेंस के टाइम पे लेंगे। देखो अभी तुम लोगों का वो उसका कोई वो नहीं है रेलेवेंस, पहले तुम लोग इस जो अभी बुद्धिज्म वाला या कोई भी जैनिज्म वाला जो भी है ना, पहले तुमने जितना अभी करा है ना पहले वो करो, उसके आंसर्स लिखो, एंड देन बुद्धिज्म इज वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स, इसीलिए तो अभी उसके अंदर ज्यादा डिटेल्स में जाने लगोगे, देखो नेवर गो इन डिटेल इन टू फिलोसफीज, बुद्धिज्म एंड वेदांत, बस, क्योंकि बाकियों का पता नहीं, लेकिन जो इन दोनों के अंदर डीप में गया वापस नहीं आ पाया वो, बुद्धिज्म और वेदांत, they are very 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 deep and very conflicting within themselves. If one Buddhist talks to another Buddhist, if their wisdom is of different level, वो खुद भी नहीं कर पाएंगे, वो खुद ही आपस में कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर लेंगे एक दूसरे को। ठीक है, चलो चलो, बाय बाय।